Okay, good morning. Today is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. It's election day, and this is the regular meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Neves.
Here.
Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Craig Peterson.
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here.
Okay, all 5 members are present. We are ready to conduct business today. First, we'll start with Nate Ferrier. Invocation from Nate Ferrier, Senior Deputy of the Kings County Deputy Sheriff's Association. Morning, Nate. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning, Chairman and fellow supervisors. It's an honor to be here this morning on Election Day. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning in the midst of a difficult year that is filled with many challenges and uncertainties. In your word, you tell us to not allow our hearts to be troubled and do not be afraid. It is in this moment we pause and look to you for strength, wisdom, and guidance. Today is Election Day, and we are filled with emotions. We are excited, worried, and anxious. But in the end, we take comfort in knowing you are in complete control and nothing happens that does not pass through your hands first. We lift up our elected leaders, those running for office, and specifically our Kings County Board of Supervisors. We ask that you bless them with discernment, wisdom, and an extra dose of energy as we move toward the end of 2020. We ask for a special blessing on Kings County and for all of us that call Kings County home. We also ask you protect the sanctity of our elections, and we pray our election process will be above reproach and done in a way that honors you. And lastly, we lift up our great country. We ask you to continue to bless and protect America. We ask you to heal our land and help us to remember we are all Americans, living in one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Today we have a special guest here today, Nathan Killenbrew. He's a citizen of the quarter, employee of the quarter. Please lead us in the flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, right now we'll go on to unscheduled appearances. Any person may directly address the board at this time on any item on the agenda or any other item of interest to the public. 3 minutes are allowed. Do we have anybody on the line? Nobody? Okay, we're going to move on. And we're going to go to approval of the minutes, which is going to be polled until next Tuesday. So right now we're going to move on down to employee recognition and Rebecca Campbell and Tim Brashears.
Yes, just a quick note, the Employee Recognition Committee met and they voted on the Employee of the Quarter. And I'll turn it over to Tim so he can introduce the Employee of the Quarter and talk about him just a bit.
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tim Brashears, Kings County Parks and Grounds Superintendent, here today to present Nathan Killenbrew to your board for being selected as employee of the third quarter for 2020. More affectionately known as Nat, he is the caretaker of Burris Park, which is an approximately 50-acre park located in the northeast corner of Kings County, up in Kingsburg. It would be very difficult to offer a comprehensive explanation as to what Nat actually does out there at Burris Park due to current circumstances, primarily by himself. But for the sake of time and focus, I'll just kind of stay focused on what brought him here to this point today. And that is his ground leveling efforts at Burris Park. Uneven terrain due to gopher and mole activity is pretty much an accepted scope of the terrain. Most people just kind of aware that it's there and beware of it. This is mainly due to the cost of leveling the grounds and the available resources to stay on top of it. Unless you exist primarily for the sake of athletic fields, that's usually not at the top of your priorities. Nat approached me with the idea of leveling the park a couple of years ago after he was introduced to the gopher trap. I told him that would be a huge undertaking. He basically looked at me and said, "I got this." I said, "All right." All right, so with that in mind, I did a little research. I connected with some contractors to get some numbers on this. Found out that the price of leveling the park would cost the county about $6,300 per acre. Staff would still have to perform work in-house in order to make that happen. Nat successfully leveled 1 acre. We did this 1 acre first to get a unit cost for under $1,500. And that's all inclusive. That's seed, that's time, that's fuel. I mean, we broke it down. We wanted to know what this actually cost. It was actually $1,480. So we'll say approximately $1,500. That saves the county about $4,800 per acre compared to contracting costs. To date, Nat has leveled approximately 14 acres. So there is a to-date savings of $67,000 just on what he's done. And we do this when there's available time and resources. So there's no completion date. We're doing what we can when we can. But once both Hickey and Burris Parks are done, we're looking at a savings of $480,000 doing this work in-house. That's huge. And that's only tangible savings. I mean, there's the enhancement for the visitors to be able to come out there and experience level ground. That's priceless. You can't put a price on that, on those visitors' experience. So with that, I present to your board, Matt Killebrew, as employee of the third quarter of 2020 for his ground leveling efforts at Burris Park.
Hey.
Nathan, you have a speech? Did you bring any sample? You bring any gophers from the Gopher Hawk?
No, I killed a lot of gophers from the Gopher Hawk, but that's been a very nice tool that was introduced to me by a member of the Farm Bureau. And a couple of years ago when we used to have the Farm Bureau dinners out there. And yeah, since then I think I have 99 of those traps now.
Wow.
So they work very well, very efficient.
Yeah, I use them too. And I was setting them one day and my dog, I pulled a gopher out of one and reset it. My dog's watching me and set the next one. And I went in the house. I heard it click. And then I couldn't find my trap. My dog sat there and watched it. Once it clicked, he took off with the trap. So I had to buy a new trap.
I have a few neighborhood dogs that do the same thing. They'll go out and chase the traps like at night or something, and I'll come out in the morning and find them missing.
Yeah.
Find them somewhere, sometimes on other ends of the park, but
Well, we went out there for a sheriff's posse dinner and the Farm Bureau dinner, and the gophers, you see them. They come up as you're walking to your dinner. There's hundreds of them. So if you get that under control, that's amazing.
it's been a chore, but it's been definitely making some headway on it.
We don't want to lose that park. So appreciate it.
That's a good job, sir. I mean, that's not something to be taken lightly. I mean, the safety, somebody for stepping in it, breaking an ankle, or some kid out there trying to play that's a big deal. Thank you for doing that for the county and lowering that fiscal impact too.
I'm doing it for multiple reasons. The public, mainly the first one. Also doing it for our equipment. It's easier on our equipment when it's not being bounced around and beat up so bad, and also the employees. So saving all three of that kind of been the priority.
Good job.
Very good. We appreciate it. Hey, anything else? Yep. Okay, we're going to move on to consent calendar. Before I go on the consent calendar, if you are listening and you are on mute, if you want to say something, you have to unmute yourself. We do not have the capabilities of unmuting you. So recognize that when you want to talk, make sure you look and you're not muted. And we're going to consent calendar. All items listed on our consent calendar are acted by one motion unless one board member would like to vote on it separately. What's your direction?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Neves, second by Supervisor Fagundes. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves,
Yes.
Supervisor Valley,
Aye.
Supervisor Verboen,
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson,
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, 5 in favor. We've approved the consent calendar as presented. We're going to go on to regular agenda items, and we're going to start with item A, Public Works Department. And again, it's looks like it's going to be Kyria.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman. As we move forward to the regular agenda item, I'd like to ask the board to consider the table until next week. Item D, number 3, A and B, is I believe that.
I'm going to do that when we got to it.
Are you going to do it when we got to it? I'm sorry. I thought it was appropriate to do it before we took up the regular agenda.
What's the
Whatever you
proper
want to
way?
do, Mr. Chairman.
Now or when we get to the item?
Now, well, if you do that, then we won't have a negotiator for closed session.
And the other fact that the board should be aware in deciding whether to table is that next meeting is your last meeting before the deadline by which the tribe needs a final decision.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask then, is it possible to come back out and take up this item after our closed session discussion? I believe there's some information in closed session that the board should be aware of in their decision-making process, and I think this is premature to put this before the closed session discussion.
Actually, under the Brown Act, you have to do this before you can go into closed session. So if there's something that you need to change, then certainly the board should consider it, but you
We
have
discuss
to
it.
appoint a real estate.
Openly when we get that item?
I'll do my best when we come up on it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor.
All right, Carrie, it's all yours.
Good morning, board members. Carrie Martinez, administration on the behalf of Public Works. So earlier this year, the California Department of Parks and Recreation had a grant funding opportunity for various California agencies to improve their operations, parks, and recreation facilities. Kings County applied and received a one-time grant in the amount of $400,000. There was a 20% match requirement. The required match of $80,000 was donated by the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization, secured from the Hill Bloom Foundation. The funds will be used to provide upgrades and enhancement to Burris and Hickey Park. The request to apply for the grant was submitted and approved by your board on August 25th of earlier this year. Today, the only action we request is to formally accept the $80,000 check from the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization. I want to add one more note that the success of this grant application would not have been possible without the help of Rhonda Mann from Public Works. So a big thank you to Rhonda. I know she's listening right now, who worked hard on the application and the partnerships to receive the required match. I have Courtney Kalisian from the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization. And because of social distancing, we will be virtually accepting this check through WebEx. And Courtney, I will hand it over to you now.
Thank you so very much. I just want to confirm, can everyone hear me over there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, thank you, supervisors and Chairman Verboen, for allowing me to be here this morning. And as was mentioned, I am not often anywhere near you all unless it is because of the work of Rhonda Mann in the Public Works Department. So I do think it's important to recognize her hard work, not just with securing the Prop 68 funds, but also in securing the match funds on behalf of the county from the Hill Bloom Foundation. The SJV CEO has been honored to partner with the county in one way or another for the last decade. It started out through our Valley Innovative Energy Watch, or VIEW partnership, which many of you are familiar with and have participated in. And over the time, we have grown, and we are so happy that we're finding new ways to work with the county and support the efforts of the county to make a better place for all of our residents. So congratulations on your award for your Prop $68 and also for the hard work of your Public Works Department in securing those match funds. Through the magic of modern digital technology, I am happy to take this check here in my office for $80,000, and it's already there for you all as well. But congratulations, good luck, and we can't wait to see what you all do with this.
Thank you, Courtney. It's always a pleasure hearing you present something. You're always so enthusiastic, and it cheers up the day. So thank you again, and thanks for your help, and thanks, Rhonda Mann. I really appreciate that. I know the Larry Hublum, I guess, Bloom Foundation. He's from Kingsburg. He started DHL. His brother, he passed away. His brother carried on his legacy by donating back to the community. So we really appreciate his family for doing what they do.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, because this is restricted for use of the parks, you will need a motion to accept it with conditions.
So with that said, in a motion to accept the $80,000 check for more gopher killers. Moved by Supervisor Fagundes, second by Supervisor Neves. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley?
Aye.
Supervisor Peterson? Supervisor Verboen?
Aye.
Supervisor Peterson?
Yes. Aye.
There we go. Supervisor Fagundes?
My phone went to sleep.
It happens. And Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes. Okay, 5 in favor. We've approved as presented. I want to thank Courtney for calling in this morning and thank Rhonda Matt for her help as well. So with that, we're going to go on to accepting money to maybe giving some money away. So Sheriff Robinson.
I appreciate that introduction. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Robinson, Kings County Sheriff. It's good to see everybody in person. I have an agenda item this morning that I want to present, but I just want to forewarn you a little bit. It's going to be longer than most of the agenda items I normally do. So if you will indulge me for about 15 minutes, I'll go through this item. And
you got a video?
We have some videos to show. Once I get through the explanation, I have Commander Bevins in my office. He's going to share my screen and show some videos and pictures to give everybody kind of a broad understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here before you make your decision. So in 2014, we started our air support program with the purchase of an airplane, and we've been using that platform for the last 6 years. The good news about this agenda item today is I'm not asking for more money. I'm asking to use some money that we didn't anticipate in the budget this year. And when we started that program in 2014, that plane and the equipment in that plane, which the equipment is really the expensive part in both of these proposals, was $471,000. And that was the CTLE, which is a light sport aircraft that we've been using. And just to kind of to give your board an idea, the camera in that equipment and the mapping system was $241,000, and the plane itself was $180,000, to give you an idea of what we looked at back then. The program was kicked off by introducing volunteer pilots. And so over the course of the years, we've added about 12 volunteer pilots. Most of them come from Lemoore Naval Air Station that are Navy pilots, but we have a few local pilots as well that own airplanes out at the airport, and they fly when they can. You know, some of them can fly daytime, some can fly nighttime, some can fly weekends. Obviously, Supervisor Peterson flies a lot with us as well as a pilot himself. And then we also have 5 tactical flight officers that come from the Sheriff's Office and Hanford Police Department right now currently that operate the camera equipment and the other equipment, radio equipment inside of the airplane. On average, they're working about 30 to 40 hours per week, but that's pretty contingent upon what activities are going on and what pilots are available and things like that. They've responded to several thousand calls for service over the last 6 years. And these calls for service include armed suspects, SWAT callouts, vehicle and foot pursuits, missing children and adults, suspicious vehicles and people, photographs, illegal marijuana grows, surveillance photographs prior to search warrants, traffic collisions, fires, and they frequently assist detectives from all agencies within the county to include our Major Crimes Task Force. And then we also have staff that participate in a federal and a state task force out of Fresno that they assist as well. When the ASU, when the airplane is up, it's typically the first one on scene. Now, obviously, it's not on scene on the ground, but it's on scene in the air with its camera, and then the tactical flight officer is calling out the different things that are going on scene and relaying that information to the ground units, which obviously helps in a safety situation, so that way you can see what you're getting into. The surveillance camera, which is one of the main components of the aircraft, has reached its end of life for the current airplane, which kind of brings us to this option today. And the parts for the camera are no longer being produced. And so right now we actually have a borrowed part that's in our current camera system that the company has loaned us. But in order to put in the used part that we need to get the current camera functional under our platform, because we do have to return the part that they've loaned us, it's going to cost about $19,000. We looked at the option of trying to upgrade our camera to our current aircraft, but because of the weight limitations in our current aircraft, we couldn't add a newer camera, upgraded camera, because they do get heavier the higher quality camera that you get. The camera system that we currently have, we fly at about 1,500 feet. And so when you're flying at about 1,500 feet, I'm not a pilot, but the pilots tell me that your response to an emergency issue within the aircraft is pretty quick. And if you recall, last year we did have that issue where a cylinder went down in our aircraft when they were above Corcoran. They were able to land it at Sawyer, Boswell, airstrip and save the airplane and obviously the personnel involved. And so flying at a higher altitude with a bigger plane and better camera equipment is one of the advantages of what the agenda item is that I'm bringing you today. The other thing is our current airplane has about 500 hours left before we have to do an engine overhaul. And that's a standard that comes with all aircraft. You have to do an engine overhaul after so many hours. And so we have about 500 hours left. And so we still have some wiggle room before we have to do that. But that overhaul is going to cost about $25,000. And so between the camera and the overhaul, you know, we're looking at about $50,000 that we'd have to spend in the current aircraft just to keep it operational here in a short amount of time. The other thing is our aircraft was made in Germany. So bringing parts in for the aircraft itself is a little more costly, and it's a little more costly for the maintenance as well. And so just keep that in mind. What we'd like to do today is present your board with a proposal to purchase a Cessna 206. And I have some videos and photographs to show you here shortly. If your board approves that today, then we would come back to your board to sell the current aircraft we have. So our intention is not to keep both airplanes. We would sell the current airplane that we have and that we currently operate. And we have had some interest in that as well because it's a great platform to get started with. And so like when we started 6 years ago looking at this platform, you kind of got to get your foot in the door. And this was a great opportunity. And so if your board approves the purchase of the new airplane today, then we would come back for approval to take that out through the sale process that we use through the public website. We believe we can get about $120,000 for the current aircraft. We did acquire a free aircraft, if you recall, a couple months ago through the 1033 program. We literally spent about $1,200 to get it here and then just fuel to train in it. When we looked at adding a platform that I'm going to show you today to the current aircraft, we're looking at about $150,000. But the aircraft that we were able to get for free through the military 1033 program is about a 1986 aircraft. And the one that we're looking at today is a lot newer, so it's going to last a lot longer. It's a 2001. So we could take the current aircraft that we got for free, but once you go through that, you have to not only purchase the equipment, which is very expensive, but you also have to go through FAA and get everything approved to move forward in that current platform. But I'll tell you, I had asked Supervisor Peterson what he thought about the aircraft that we got for free. And he's like, it's a great airplane. And so he's like, you got it for free. I wouldn't advise getting rid of it just yet, you know, while you're doing the different things that you're doing in your program. Typically, if you were going to look at an aircraft, equipment, and everything that I'm going to show you today, you're talking a little bit more than $1 million to get into the platform that I'm getting ready to show you. October 2020, we were contacted by Ken Higher-Tech of the Aero Company down in Southern California. And they provide the largest aerial mapping systems literally in the world for law enforcement type aircrafts and other military style aircrafts. And so they supply that equipment to several hundred law enforcement agencies. The aircraft that they are selling was their demo aircraft, so they could take the camera up and basically try to sell other agencies on purchasing their equipment. So they're selling their airplane and it's a turnkey law enforcement mission ready. The Cessna 206 is still used by CHP, California Highway Patrol, in their platform today. And this airplane actually came through CHP. So it has a history of obviously maintenance and upkeep and everything through that platform. It's newer model, state-of-the-art surveillance camera system, new aerial moving map software, newer model large screen camera display monitor, as well as other equipment listed in the agreement. The value of the airplane coupled with the already installed law enforcement equipment is approximately $1.3 million. All modifications to this airplane have been inspected by the Federal Aviation Administration and have been approved. Additionally, the aircraft was here on Friday and we had our FAA approved mechanic look at it and he found no issues with the aircraft at all. So they're no longer using this airplane, which brings us to why they've offered it to us for sale. We're a customer of theirs. We've bought our mapping system through them previously. And so we've remained in communication with them because of that mapping system and upgrades and, you know, making sure the system works. The purchase price of the aircraft is $390,000. They did reduce the purchase price a couple days ago to $385,000 because there was a $5,000 annual inspection that they had thrown in there. And so they reduced it by $5,000. So it's $385,000, but then we would then have to pay for the $5,000 inspection after the fact if your board approves the item. To kind of just quickly go over the equipment list and the aircraft itself, it's a 2001 Cessna T206H with air conditioning. Our current aircraft does not have air conditioning, and so I can tell you from being up in our current aircraft in the summertime, it's hot. And in order to get to cooler temperatures, you have to fly at higher altitudes, which isn't allowed under our current platform because the camera system isn't as efficient if you get above about 1,500 feet or 2,000 feet. The engine monitoring equipment and installation is $20,000. The aircraft is valued at about $300,000. GPS system and installation, $16,000. The biggest one is the surveillance camera system and installation, which you're going to see a video on shortly, $678,000. Aerial moving map software display and installation, $125,000. Direct downlink and installation, $50,000. And what the direct downlink does is it allows you, for the video feeds that you're about to see from the new aircraft, you can actually live feed those down to somebody in a command post or on the ground, which is huge when you're trying to plan an operation or respond to an operation. Fuselage camera mount and installation, $70,000. Airplane tug, $10,000 for a total approximate value of $1.2 million. We had staff go down, make sure they checked the logbooks and checked out all the equipment to make sure everything was in working order. And then, like I mentioned, they brought the airplane here on Friday. I actually went up for a ride in the airplane, and then staff went up for a few hours with them to test everything out to make sure everything was in working order. Everything is in working order, and the engine has about 1,000 hours remaining flying time, which is the equivalent of about 4 to 5 years based on the number of hours that we're currently using. Obviously, it's equipped with state-of-the-art monitoring equipment. There's an iPad. You're going to see that in the pictures here, and it's going to be extremely beneficial for personnel during critical incidents, investigations, and natural disasters. The purchase of this aircraft is just going to result in tremendous savings to us, not only instantly in the value of liability, et cetera, but also in the long run. We currently pay about $17,000 a year for the insurance on the small plane. Because it's a light sport craft, you actually pay a little bit more than a normal plane. So the 182 is about $4,000 a year, and we estimate the insurance on this plane would be about $5,000 to $6,000 a year, the 206. The Cessna 206 is turbocharged, meaning it can operate at much higher altitudes as necessary, obviously air conditioned, as I mentioned, and it can take the pilot plus 5 passengers, which our current aircraft 2 is the maximum number carrying capacity. The maintenance for the Cessna is easily performed by any aviation mechanic, which is what we have at the Hanford Airport, and requires no additional training. Unlike the maintenance on the current aircraft, it does require specialty training. We've had to take it to Visalia and also Las Vegas, if you remember a few years ago when we had a little issue that had to be repaired. The what?
Not the lawnmower shop?
Not the lawnmower shop. Right. One thing that I really wanted to mention that it wasn't directly related to the aircraft, but in August 2019, California passed Assembly Bill 392 and was signed into law by the governor. This bill redefined the circumstances under which the use of lethal force by a peace officer is considered justifiable. The intent of the legislature is that peace officers use deadly force only when necessary in defense of human life. In determining whether deadly force is necessary, officers shall evaluate each situation in light of the particular circumstances of each case and shall use other available resources, which is a key component here, and techniques if reasonably safe and feasible to an objectively reasonable officer. In a short amount of time, we've had 3 officer-involved shootings that we had videotaped by the CHP aircraft that was assisting us on those investigations. This platform is literally that same platform. I spoke with Jim Arndt last week, who represents me and us, the county, through the lawsuits that occur. I imagine, and county council could answer this way better than I can, I'm probably the most sued department that you have, unfortunately. And most of the lawsuits stem around a use of force type situation. And when I spoke to Jim Arndt last week, I said, hey, what do you think? What do you think about having video capabilities and having those types of things on recording? And he said that absolutely most of the time it's very beneficial because it proves the things that you were doing were correct. and it helps reduce our long-term liabilities on those situations. And he said, but let's be real, occasionally there's an incident that's video recorded that shows you did something wrong. He goes, but we would rather still have video because then we know what we're looking at going into it versus not having video at all. He also related an example of a recent case that he had where they had video that I'm going to show you today. And the video depicted when an agency terminated a pursuit. The argument is that the pursuit had continued on, resulting in a crash which caused injury to somebody, and the government entity was being sued. Well, they were able to pull the video and show that they had terminated the pursuit miles before the suspect crashed, which then got that agency out of the lawsuit completely because of the video. I can tell you that in one of ours that we settled, without the video, I believe we would have had to settle at a lot higher dollar amount. And we were able to settle for a low dollar amount because we had video, even though it was a little bit grainy in that case, to help, make the argument for reducing that liability. And so it's going to be a big tool for de-escalation that we've already seen, but also in the liability piece that we face on a daily basis. What I'm going to do now is ask Commander Bevins, who's listening in, to share the screen, because I want to just go through some quick photos and videos of the current platform and the proposed platform, and then there'll be a 6-minute video on this camera itself. And so, Mark, I know you're listening in. If we could start with the CTLE photos and then the videos, and I'll just let you go through those and I'll explain them as you pop through. We'll see how this technology works here.
We don't have as nice as the sheriff's department.
So that's our current airplane, the CTLE light sport craft we acquired in 2014. Okay, Mark, you can go to the next one. That's sitting in the cockpit, and you can see the video screen that the pilot uses, and then the tactical flight officer is the screen on the right. Next one. That's at night. You can see they're up in the air, and you can see the pilot's view, and then also the tactical flight officer is the view on the right. One thing I want to point out on the view on the right that pay close attention to when you see the upgraded platform that we're talking about today is the graininess and the video from the camera and the mapping system in that camera. So that's what we call a split screen. On the left of that, you see the actual area view of a residential area. On the right, you can see the actual street names of that residential area, and that's in the city of Hanford. Next one. That's another aerial view. This photo was taken with an iPhone, and you can see the residential area almost a little bit better with the iPhone than you can from the camera angle. But the camera angle is more out to the horizon in defense of that. But that's just to give you an idea of what the tactical flight officer is looking at in the current platform, in the current aircraft. Okay, Mark, next. Once the photos are done, he's going to switch over to a few short clips of videos from the current aircraft, the CTLE. Yeah, broaden that screen, please, Mark. There you go. That's a daytime view of a pursuit. You'll see the vehicles. Back that one up, Mark, please, to the beginning, now that you have it full screen. The vehicle just turned right. It's a white vehicle, and you'll see the patrol car there in the bottom of the screen. And then you'll see the white vehicle come to the top of the screen, and then the patrol car shortly behind it. That's a vehicle pursuit in the current aircraft. I didn't want to bring the thousands of videos we have from the current aircraft, so we just picked a couple to show you, daytime and nighttime. So it's a good platform, but the platform you're going to see is a great platform. And really what we're asking your board to do is consider upgrading our platform with no cost to the county budget currently because of the revenues that came in that were unexpected. It's hard to see, but you'll see about where the 47 number is on the right middle of the screen. There's a team walking in. This is a search warrant that they're getting ready to serve. And so that's our current platform, daytime, where the tactical flight officers, observing them moving in and trying to call out people, vehicles, animals, anything that they see. You can see the current platform is a little bit harder to see what's currently going on, and you'll see when we move to the next one the difference.
Hey, Sheriff, so
Yes,
that's
sir.
the quality of video that you have to take to court?
Yes.
This is the quality?
That's the quality there. That is the video that we would take to court. These are, this is a felony traffic stop. You'll see there's a bunch of patrol cars there. And what the tactical flight officer is looking for is the hot spots where you can see people. And so if somebody runs, they can see a hot spot running away from the scene or like a gun thrown out of the vehicle, et cetera. So, you know, it's the video that we have based on the current platform that we have, which was, you can see a couple of people standing there. And so it works. But you know, the platform today, you'll see here in a second, is just night and day difference. We should have one more from the CTLE, and then we'll go to the current aircraft that we're talking about today. This is just a traffic stop where the deputy's standing out, talking to the driver. He kind of gives you an idea of what they're looking at when they're up in the air and trying to call out what they see going on down on the ground. Okay, Mark, let's go to the 206 now. Let's go to the photos first. This is just a photo when it was here on Friday at the airport. There'll be a few photos that he's going to scroll through. Go ahead. The camera's right behind that back right tire. You can see a little ball hanging down. You'll get a better view here in a second. So obviously it's a much larger aircraft that can seat 6. Right now there's 4 seats in it because of the equipment that sits in the back, and you'll see that here in one of these photos. There's the screen. So the tactical flight officer actually sits in the rear seat in this platform. That's the monitoring screen, which is much larger screen to view from in this platform. Go ahead. That's the front seat where the pilot is obviously on the left. And then there's an iPad holder that's on the right screen where you can mirror the back screen to the front screen. So that way the pilot can also see what the tactical flight officer is seeing from the back seat. Just another look of the aircraft there. You can see the camera mounted just behind that left driver's side tire. A little better view of the camera. Okay, Mark, let's go to the videos now. So here, this is the platform I'm showing you today. So this is just a suspect. This is actually Southern California. They provided this video for us, but this is from this airplane and this camera. They're just following a suspect along. We tried to shorten the videos because I didn't want to, you know, bring 30-minute long videos. So each of these videos is only about 30 seconds to a minute. But you can see the difference in clarity during a daytime look. And they're flying at, this one's from 2,500 feet, and we were flying from 1,500 feet. So, and then at a distance of, I think, about 0.7 of a mile. There's different settings on these screens. So if you're daytime, nighttime, you can toggle back and forth. So if you're daytime, you can go to more of a nighttime where you get a heat sensor. And if you're nighttime, you can go to a daytime where it brightens it up for you as well. And you'll see that in the 6-minute video here shortly. The next video is going to be a continuation of this video, but it's going to show it to you on split screen. So this is the mapping. This is the difference in the mapping of our current platform to that one. So in the new mapping system, you can punch in an address and it'll pinpoint it for you, and it'll show you the street that you're on with the actual physical address. So you can see the numbers there, 304.
So does it lock on that cross there? Is that the?
That's exactly right. So the minute that you punch in an address, so if we get a call for service in Kettleman City and they're in Hanford, they can punch in that address and the camera immediately locks onto that address. And then you can zoom in and out to see vehicles or people coming or going from that location from a great distance. Currently, our platform is about 2 miles is about best you can do. But the new platform, this one's 10 to 15 miles. When you get within about 10 to 15 miles, you'd actually start picking up vehicles and people from about 3,500 feet to 5,000 feet, or, you know, this one here is 2,500 feet.
Yeah, and you're high enough the perpetrator to know what you're doing.
That's exactly right. So the pilot who flew up Friday, who flies this plane for that company, said that generally they'll fly about 3,000 feet and they'll throttle back the engine where it's super quiet and people don't even know that you're up in the air. With our aircraft at 1,500 feet, you can hear it.
I don't know what it is.
Well, that's true.
I think it's guy blowing it.
Some people have figured it
Blowing
out.
a yard off.
We've picked up a few phone calls and such with some people figuring out that our airplane was overhead. So you can see the difference in quality in the mapping system plus the video quality from this new camera. Okay, Mark, if you could go to the 6-minute video now, and you can see when they're on an address, they can zoom in and out to pick up other streets and things coming and going. And so this next video is 6 minutes long, but it's the company that put together this next video, but it really gives a great overview of what this the capability is of this platform and this camera system. There should be, Mark, and I don't know how we'll have to play the audio. You might have to unmute. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. We'll see if it just has it. Yeah, it looks like you'll have to try to unmute. I'm not sure. That's the camera, close-up picture of the camera. Yeah, that's okay, Mark. That's not working there. I have the link on this USB. Can you pop it in? Mark, we're going to pop it in here in the board chambers. The link.
All your current pilots, you know how to fly this kit?
So some of them currently know how to fly, you know, but they have to get certified in this aircraft. So like when we got our aircraft, we had the Tulare County pilot certify our pilots. And so most of them can fly almost anything, but you have to get certified to fly this aircraft. So I don't know exactly which ones have flown a 206 before. I imagine some of them have, but everybody has to go through the certification process. Thank you.
Westcam's MX-10 is a compact, multi-sensor, multispectral imaging system that's ideal for surveillance missions from light aircraft. The MX-10 is flight proven from tactical mission levels on fixed wing, rotary wing, and UAV platforms. Features and benefits of the MX-10. Weight optimized. Free from external or support electronics, the MX-10 weighs only 37 pounds. The internal electronics unit, built-in vibration isolator, built-in GPS receiver, and low installation weight of the MX-10 directly affects mission endurance, enabling faster, more efficient execution. Sensor flexibility. Industry-leading target detection, recognition, identification range performance, and sighting capabilities across multiple spectral bands are achieved through the MX-10's 6-sensor payload capability. Defense, homeland security, and airborne law enforcement customers requiring a high-performing small ball system can incorporate up to 3 separate digital imaging and 3 laser capabilities into their configuration. Payloads include thermal imager, high-definition daylight continuous zoom TV, low-light continuous zoom TV, daylight spotter, laser rangefinder, and narrow and wide laser illuminators. Real-time image enhancement on all MX10 sensors is done simultaneously, including sharpening, contrast enhancement, and haze penetration, all of which lead to improved feature detection and recognition. When more detail is required, turn to the MX10's image blending technology. Blend EO and IR imagery into one image stream to create spectrally rich images that yield detail unseen in individual sensor images. The MX10 is capable of simultaneous HD digital video, NTSC or PAL analog video outputs, and is compatible with all existing MX series command and control, moving map, SLAS, and radar interfaces. The MX10's MX Geo technology is an effective and accurate ease-of-use control suite. The combination of geolocation, pointing, focus, and tracking technology supports MX10 operators in providing tracking assistance and determining accurate subject geographical location. Furthermore, the suite helps to reduce operator workload by automatically focusing imagery even when alternating between sensors. The MX10 can be nose, wing, or belly mounted. Either way, the stabilization performance is not affected as the MX10 does not require external isolators. Built on over 40 years of stabilization experience, all sensors within the MX10 share the same level of stabilization, creating best-in-class image stability in a small ball offering. Other benefits include no calibration required for LRU swap-out, auto-align to aircraft, installation flexibility. Similar to the MX-15, the MX-10's powerful built-in functionality provides common operator interfaces and line replaceable units, or LRUs. Common LRUs create simplified interchangeability between turret models and platforms within a fleet. With a reduced LRU count, the MX-10's reliability is increased and maintainability made easier as fault isolation is automatically enhanced. To support all products within the MX series portfolio, Westcam has built and continues to expand a global customer service network. This network is backed by technicians and service specialists who are dedicated to delivering world-class in-service support. Talk to Westcam today about our individually tailored service and support solutions, authorized service centers located worldwide, MX Emulator, System Integration Lab testing and training capability, MX Sim, simulation training and rehearsal capability, MX Ray, remote diagnostic testing capability of fielded systems, and e-learning, classroom, in-flight, and in-vehicle product training courses. See first, act first.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So as you can see, the quality is way different than our current platform. Our current platform has been a great starter for us. You know, it helped us accomplish a lot of things and kind of establish an annual budget on what this looks like as far as fuel costs and expenses and things like that. And And we've been fortunate to have the current platform, and whoever gets our platform is going to have a great starter platform for them as well. But we have an opportunity to upgrade that platform after 6 years. And I think a few meetings ago, Supervisor Neves mentioned the best technology changes. And if you can kind of try to keep up with that and keep moving forward, and we have a great opportunity right now because of the relationship that Sergeant Hunter built with this company, that they reached out to us first to see if we wanted to purchase their platform. So with that said, you know, we've added a little bit in for taxes and some other little technical equipment to the tune of $429,000. We've lowballed our estimate annual revenue that was not included in the budget at $1.1 million, $25,000. But I can tell you that's a little bit low. It's probably going to come in more at about $1,300,000 based on an updated estimate from the last 2 weeks. And so we have the money to do this. We'll get rid of the other airplane if your board approves this at literally no cost to the county moving forward with this. We just get to move forward into a new platform. And this platform will last us a long time. The camera currently has 1,000 hours on it, and its lifespan for that type of camera is 15 to 20,000 hours. And so we've got a long lifespan on this camera system, and obviously the plane's in great shape. So with that,
You get a warranty with that camera you used?
we are, and so we're actually in communication with them, and that's why we put a little bit extra in that dollar amount to get a maintenance agreement on that camera as well. So I don't have that cost yet today.
Yeah, technology changes so fast.
Yeah.
Hard to keep up with.
And so the request would be to approve the agreement to purchase the 206 fixed-wing law enforcement aircraft and adopt the budget change with a 4/5 vote required. And then I would bring back, if your board approves, I would bring back in a short amount of time to sell the current platform.
Thank you. So
Mr.
any
Chair, I would-
Question or comments?
Yes, I would also ask the board for direction because the sheriff has offered, since it is a 5-passenger plane, that there's additional seats if a department head has to go to Sacramento. He has mentioned that the plane could transport them. So I would like your board's direction of whether you are okay expanding the usage of that plane to transport department heads to Sacramento for
I think it
their
should be available
meetings.
to the county staff for emergency purposes only, and not only just personnel that needs to get somewhere in a timely manner, but also for fire and also for public works or community development for, you know, code enforcement violations, stuff like that.
We've, in the current platform, we've helped the health department when they've had, you know, illegal dump out in the county island where they needed some pictures. Other agencies, as Ms. Campbell pointed out, they allow for department heads or their designee to go to meetings. We've used aircraft to fly detectives to, you know, Southern California to do interviews where you can get them there and back without having to have them drive, you know. The flight time from Oxnard for Bruce, who brought the plane up, was about 1 hour and 10 minutes for this aircraft to get here. So I like the idea. I think it could be beneficial to all of us here at the county, obviously for official business. I really like the idea, and I think it'd be helpful. And you don't have to take the platform out. It will seat 6, but in where the back 2 seats are is where the equipment is. It is removable. They tell us it takes about a half hour to take the equipment out, where you could actually transport the pilot plus 5. But you know, ideally, you'd leave the equipment in and have the pilot plus 3 if necessary.
5 of me or 5 little guys?
Well, maybe you and Joe.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Good. Supervisor.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff, for you and the gentleman in your office helping get the information out to the public. You're very transparent with what you're asking us to do here. And then to rewind back to 5 or 6 years, the first time you came here, I know it was almost a little uphill, even though you had the support. I remember you were you went out of your way to try to get some integrity to it. Why does Kings County, a small county, need this aircraft? But you said, hey, give me a shot and I'll have some data to show back. And so coming back here today, you've done that. Thank you. Thank you for that. I also appreciate the fact that the fiscal impact is minimal to zero based on that. So that's good for the public to be reiterated back to the public. And also going to the CAO's comments on the use. I'm supportive of that as well. official businesses, as you labeled that's always very helpful, especially on the higher up meetings where, a governor isn't going to give you an appointment 2 weeks in advance. That's going to come probably about 9 o'clock the night before that you have this meeting at a very small window with either Senate Pro Tem or Speaker or governors. That's just the way it is. And having the ability to get up there that quick is an asset. And it's safer. I know 9 or 10 years ago when we were doing the back and forth on the fight for water and the rallies, I literally 2 or 3 times met people on a ditch bank who told me, hey, we'll pick you up, park here at this intersection, and a plane will come land, and I'm getting in a 2 or 3 seater and flying off a ditch bank and heading to Sacramento with no air conditioning.
Right.
So
Time it's hot.
that's a lot, yes, sir, especially in a suit and tie. And so I'm very supportive of both of the requests made today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Peterson, you want to add a comment to this? You're the pilot.
Yeah. No, you bet, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks to the sheriff and for bringing this forward. I tell you, we've really got a mature program now here. Over the past 6 years, we've learned a lot, but none of it would be possible without the professionalism of our pilots, and especially bringing that level of Navy training to this operation. These guys fly all around the world and fly in all kinds of different spectrums, and that insight has just been invaluable to the level of safety and operation that we use every day with this aircraft. Also to Commander Bevins, and special shout out to Sergeant Hunter, who has saved us thousands upon thousands of dollars with his creativity and his ability to leave no stone unturned when it comes to technology. He's just been a really great asset to this program. But going beyond that, it's just this has been a very effective platform. But the new platform, is amazing. And, you can just, in the day-to-day operations of the county, imagine, a deputy out in a remote area pulling over a car. I flew last week and out near Dover and 12th Avenue, deputies out there, and we just happened to be near it. And so we were over, we assisted in the call, and it's just that level of support and assurance from, the deputy that hears the plane overhead that I think is very helpful. Second part of that is that this new camera, you can be 17 miles away and pick up the target. And so, if we're at 6,000 feet over the top of the city of Hanford, now, you can just imagine what 17 miles gets you. And as soon as we get that call, it's nothing but a stroke of a key, and that camera adjusts automatically to that location. And, so if it's a burglar alarm, the first call that comes in, we're there within 2 minutes by camera. And so the effectiveness of that and the safety, a little bit with respect to, the limitations of the current aircraft and really, the limitations of the camera and the aircraft. And, as the sheriff talked about flying at 1,500 feet, you really have a very short window if something occurs with an engine or an immediate need to land the aircraft. And, you're always taught as a pilot, from the first thing, altitude is always your friend. And being able to operate this camera, from a much higher altitude just brings a whole new level of safety into that whole aspect. The other issue is crew fatigue. And, I've been on a number of long calls. We were called out to Paso Robles this past summer. There was a shooting that occurred there. Myself and Sergeant Hunter, we flew all night. And, I think most of you have seen that aircraft, and to be stuck in that seat and, in the position we're in. And this new aircraft just really provides a level of comfort that, we haven't had in this aircraft, and it really reduces crew fatigue. Because when you think about it, we're flying in an orbit over a target, and we could be flying around in a circle for hours over that target, as we did in Paso Robles. And you try to keep your head in the game, and you just don't want to have that fatigue level come into it. The other thing with this camera, and I was also involved in a call out to Tulare, and we relieved the highway patrols, their helicopter there. It's called H-40, and we were listening to their transmissions on the way to the call. And in the old aircraft, we're listening to their calls, and they're saying, yes, we can see into the window of the house, that they're on the orbit, or where the subject was at. When we arrived, we could see the window. We couldn't see the window, and so I mean, this new camera is really an amazing, level of functionality that we don't have currently, and again, all of the things that come with it, flying from a safer altitude. I think the other things, that the sheriff talked a little bit about, but I mean, it's really important to have a volunteer flight crew that is so capable. There isn't a flight group that operates for what we operate probably anywhere in California, just because of our costs. But I think we as pilots, we've been understanding of the cost factor of a new aircraft, and everybody's been pretty patient and willing to kind of accept the safety limitations of the aircraft and create policy to fly around it. It doesn't always make us comfortable, especially on a hot day when the performance of the aircraft is reduced even further, just because of the density of the air, the engine's ability to produce power. But I think this is a great option. It's an amazingly affordable option when you start listening to what this aircraft would be new, the camera new. I don't know, would it be upwards of probably over $2 million, maybe even more. And I think it's a great opportunity to upgrade this system at a very small amount of the full cost of this thing. So again, congratulations to and thank you to Commander Bevins and Sergeant Hunter for all the research they've done on this. And they've looked long and hard for a long time to find a functional, affordable way to move this program forward, and I think they did so. With respect to the transport, I don't know, I don't think it's going to be this isn't going to be an everyday opportunity, I believe. And, I'll also point that we do have that 182 that is a very functional aircraft. It's a 4-seat aircraft, and, with a pilot, you can put 3 in there, and we got that airplane for free. So, there's really no greater affordability than that one. It's just, the pilot's time and scheduling to get people there. And so, I think the transport thing, and it'd be up to the board to discuss, the level of leadership that you want, or the, what level of meeting that, you're talking about attending. But there's always, as Supervisor Valley talked about, there's always meetings with short notice, and we would have to sit down as pilots and talk about what we're willing to fly in with respect to weather, and just have the staff understand that the weather changes and the capabilities of the aircraft in weather would change, and so it's not always, it's like the way I fly, and I fly for safety first, and if the weather is an issue, we're just simply driving. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time.
Mr. Chair, could I address a couple of questions to Supervisor Peterson for the record?
Yes, ma'am.
Supervisor Peterson, are you still on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just a couple questions for the record. I understood you and Sheriff Robinson to say you were part of the county's volunteer flight staff. Is that accurate?
I am, the pilots are volunteer.
Okay, I'm really directing my questions to you. You are a volunteer on the flight staff?
That is correct.
Do you receive any compensation whatsoever for those volunteer services?
No, ma'am.
And will the purchase of this aircraft affect your financial interests in any way?
No, ma'am. It'll take, it's a commitment of time, which all of the pilots, I think we all as a pilot enjoy time in the air. And so our compensation is the enjoyment of, our favorite pastime.
Certainly, Supervisor, volunteering your time for the benefit of the county is wonderful and expected. For the record, I think we've cleared that you have no financial conflicts that would impede your ability to vote on this.
Thank you.
And if I could add, I saw the plane when it came here the first time, and I was asked to go for a ride, and I said, no, I'm not getting in that plane. It was small, it was little, and it was dangerous. They've proven to make it successful over the last 6 years. They've done a great job with it. But I think this helped protect our investment to our volunteers to fly our safer aircraft at a longer time. So I think it's been very important to protect the people that volunteer to help your community stay safe. And I think we got the use out of the last plane. It's just too little for, I don't know how Supervisor Peterson flies it for 10 hours or 6 hours at a time. I know he likes flying, so that offsets it, but still, same with all the pilots. They enjoy flying, so it's important to them, but I think I got our monies out of it, so. With that,
Mr. Chairman?
Question or comment?
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Valley?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion if you're entertaining one. After hearing Peterson's comments and learning a perspective from a pilot's perspective on as far as the transportation side of it, on who the county would list as eligible to use this to go to a meeting in Sacramento or somewhere around the state. How about just for today, we can bring that part back. It doesn't sound like it's a problem, but how about we just wait to bring that back where the sheriff can get it outlined on paper and the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
We don't want it to be abused.
Yes, yeah, we'll take care of that. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, if there's nothing else, then I will make a motion as requested for today on the purchase of this fixed wing law enforcement aircraft.
We have a motion by Supervisor Valley, and we have a second by?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Neves, second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley?
Aye.
Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson?
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes. Okay, Sheriff, looks like you got yourself a new airplane, so congratulations, and I look forward to the safer community that we're going to live in because of it. So thank you and tell us, Sergeant Hunter, thank you for the work you've done to provide this, because we could not afford it without his hard work and dedication.
He's listening in, so thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And special thanks to county admin and county council too, because true to their word, they've been telling us over the course of the last few months, hey, if you have an agenda item that needs to get through faster, let us know. And this was one of them, because we didn't want to miss the opportunity. And both of them and their staff made sure that this one got through pretty quickly. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, we're going to go on now to County Council, and Lee Burdick's going to start it off with District Attorney Keith Fagundes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Supervisors. We have on the screen the PowerPoint presentation following on the presentation at last week's study session regarding AB 571, which allows local jurisdictions to set their own campaign contribution limits or allow the state campaign contribution limits to go into effect and apply to local elections. Next slide, please. So just a brief reminder on what we talked about last week at the study session. Effective on January 1st, 2021, state limitations on campaign contributions will be extended to apply to local elections unless the local jurisdiction adopts its own limits. The campaign contribution limit for state office that would be extended to local jurisdictions would be $4,700 per election. That amount was originally set at $3,000 by statute, but it has been adjusted by the Fair Political Practices Commission in January of every odd numbered year. So it's now $4,700 and would go up only if adjusted by the FPPC. Violations under state law are punishable as a misdemeanor and are subject to specified penalties. Next slide, please. All right, so AB 571 added Government Code Section 85702.5, which states in pertinent part that a county or city by ordinance or resolution may impose a limit on contributions for elective county or city offices that's different from the state limitation. A county or city that establishes contribution limits may adopt enforcement standards for violation of that limit, which could also differ from state enforcement approaches, could include administrative, civil, or criminal penalties. The FPPC has made clear that it will not be responsible for enforcing local contribution limits, but it will be responsible for enforcing state limits if the county, for instance, were not to adopt its own campaign contribution limits. And again, as I mentioned, this section shall become operative on January 1st, 2021. If the city or county has in effect as of that date, the county limit will supersede the state limits. Next slide, please. So I was asked at the last meeting to bring back a comparison of what other counties in the region have done with respect to AB 571. Fresno, as you can see, and as we talked about last week, has set a $30,000 limit per election. And we did a little bit of research and found out that under their ordinance, per election means primary, general, special, or recall elections. So hypothetically, if a candidate is running in the primary, that would be $30,000. If they survive the primary, make it to the general, that would be another $30,000, et cetera, et cetera. It applies to any election in which the candidate is running. Kern has a similar but much, much lower limitation of $500 per individual contributor per election. As of today, Madera, Merced, and Tulare have not adopted such limits, but we did not go so far as to determine whether they're considering adopting such limits. I can tell you from monitoring the county council's network that there are counties that are considering adopting limits in response to AB 571. Next slide, please.
Council, did you find out when?
Go back.
I'm sorry. Did you find out when Kern voted for 500? That seems very small. Is that recent?
I don't know. I did not determine that. It is in their ordinance, so it had to be at least 60 days ago.
Okay.
Okay. So the options would be to adopt by resolution and then ordinance limitations on campaign contributions for county elections, or do nothing and allow the state limitations, $4,700 per person for each candidate per election, to apply to county elections. Next slide, please. So if the board were to decide to set campaign contribution limits, there are in essence four factors, four elements that we think you should consider. The first is what would be the amount of the limitation. The second one would be what is the election cycle for which you'd like the limitation to apply. For instance, you could do as Fresno and Kern did, which would be a limit that would apply to each election, primary, general, special, recall. Or you could define it by election cycle, which would say in any 1 year in which the candidate is running for office, you would have one limit that would apply to both the primary and the general. We talked about the effect of that at the study session last week, such as if you set it at $30,000 for an election cycle, if an individual did not contribute to the candidate in the primary, that entire limit would be available in the general. Conversely, if somebody gave $30,000 in the primary, they would have zero amount available to contribute for the general. That's how an election cycle would work. The third thing that the county would need to do is determine who would be responsible for monitoring and enforcement. As I mentioned earlier, the Fair Political Practice Commission would not be responsible for enforcing local limitations. So the county would need to determine who would be. And then finally, what would the penalties be for violations of the limitation? It could be administrative, it could be civil, it could be criminal, it could be all of those. Those are the things that the board would need to consider if it were interested in implementing contribution limits. I'd like to invite District Attorney Fagundes to address the board at this time if he's interested.
Keith?
I think you covered everything other than my comments last week. It's just a matter to be put before the board before the January 21st deadline comes and goes, and then we didn't do anything, and we regretted not having the foresight to consider it at least. So really, I'll just submit on comments last week.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Anybody want to give direction what you guys like to do?
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
If no one has anything. Mr. Chairman, I think some of the pros and cons here, and I'm fine either way on whether we want to do something like a 5,000 limit or go along the way of Fresno County where they did the 30,000. To me, $30,000 or $25,000, to me, that says we have a quote limit, but it's there. So the state can't limit us to, this low level, or the state is telling us how much we can have per election, right? And then it also gives you enough room to where, we really don't have the resources to, like, who would we add the burden to on? Who would monitor this? Loopy Villa and his limited staff? Who would we have the burden, add the burden on penalties and administrative up to civil? I'll just put it out there for the board to either keep the conversation going or pass it. But I would put on the table, Mr. Chairman, a $25,000 limit. So we have a limit, and then the state can impose something on us, and it gives us room to operate. I don't think it changes anything, Mr. Chairman.
Like the comment?
Just one, Mr. Chair. Reviewing the Kern County ordinance, it looks like they have two different limits, one for individual and one for groups and companies.
That is correct. And that is also true in the state. AB 571 only applies to individual donors, not small committees or organizations.
So the bill that we're talking about, the local ordinance we're talking about, is individual only.
That's all you would need to adopt in order to circumvent the impact of AB 571 coming down and limiting county contributions. You could consider a broader ordinance if you were so inclined, but in order to preempt state action on local campaign limits, you would need to address the individual donors.
Because it appears Fresno's ordinance didn't address that, Kern County's did. And so I'm just kind of, and I don't want to hold you the crystal ball of Sacramento, but what are the chances of, additional requirements or additional limits be imposed later on?
I don't have that crystal ball, but Supervisor Neves, you did raise an issue that I did not address in my presentation, which is if the board sets a limit, would it also like to set an adjustment factor? For instance, anytime the FPPC ups the state limit, you could conceivably take that percentage and up the county limit as well. That would need to be part of the resolution of the ordinance if you're going to include an adjustment factor. Like the state law does.
And Kern County did address it very well. I would like to also point out where it talks about the primary, general, special election, special runoff election, recall election, and recall replacement election. So they cover the spectrum, whereas Fresno County's was a little more focused just on, I think, more a normal election cycle. And back to the discussion, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think 25,000 is probably a good number, especially since we're not looking at groups of individuals, companies and corporations, PACs, and the whole thing. Once you open that door, it's going to be pretty wide.
Once we limit it, we might not be able to raise it ever again.
Yeah, and so without getting into a lot of the details, I think it's a good starting point. I think it doesn't impose any limits that we would that I think a smaller number may have, and I think it kind of leaves the broadening to be able to allow groups and organizations. So I think the 25,000 is a good place to start, and I will second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor, is that your motion?
I'm happy to make that the motion with that to add the caveat of per election, not the election cycle. So that it's.
That encompasses all of them, the recalls, the specials.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Valley, second by Supervisor Neves. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
May I just ask a question? Did you want the adjustment factor in there or just straight 25,000 in perpetuity?
Soup Neves, on your second, was that in support of the an adjustment factor?
I guess I don't want to put an adjustment factor, but I think 2-year review. Can we add that?
Change it every 2 years or take a look at it every 2 years? Do you want to do like the FPPC every odd numbered year when you wouldn't be having an election?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because in that way it gives the candidate an ample amount of time to prepare. And I should have looked that up. I don't recall that we have too many odd number years elections left. I think we pretty much switched everything over to even numbers, but I think odd number years.
You could have a special election or a recall, but
yeah. But I think just a 2-year review period, not with an automatic. What do you call it? Automatic adjustment.
Very good.
Yeah. You're okay with that?
Yes, sir. I'd build that, those concerns or those points into the motion. And then also quick question, for those who have an annual event, right? So now, to come out of the focus of we're in the election year and it's January of an election year, obviously everyone's focusing on a primary, but for those who are like in a 4-year term and having an annual event, so you're 3 years out, 2 years out, you're raising money, is that automatically labeled as your primary, your limits for the primary?
Yes. When you set up your campaign committee, you declare your candidacy for an office. So anything you collect in advance of the primary would be attributed to the primary.
Okay. So then come past the primary, it's to say you've been fundraising the annual event 3 years in a row, you stacked up an account, the primary comes and goes. Now you're off to, if you're off to general, it's reset then, right? To start, that the limit per individual is reset then, right?
Based on the way you have framed your motion, yes, it would be reset.
Okay. And then do we have to clarify today on the other questions you pointed out on who would be the one to monitor or enforce and what the penalties would be? Or is that something we could bring back?
That is something you could bring back. We need a resolution to be in effect as of January 1st in order to keep the state limits from being imposed on the county. if you take the action as your motion has proposed, we would have that in place.
Okay.
You can then come back and look at the other three factors, which, other two factors, because you've defined the amount, you've defined the election cycle. The other two factors would be who would be responsible for monitoring, enforcing, and then what would the penalties be? Those can be determined at any point in time.
Is that the wish of the board, Mr. Chair, that we bring that language back, or you want to try to clarify today?
Today or?
Why don't we bring that part of it back?
Okay, then I'll reiterate my motion to include the points and the concerns of Soup Nez on a second.
Okay, motion forwarded and second, moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley?
Aye.
Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson?
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes.
Okay, 5 in favor. We've approved as discussed. So thank you, Lee, for that and motions. We'll move on now to item D, administration. Rebecca Campbell.
Yes, item D. Good morning, members of the board. So the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee is a 13-member committee that is made up of area of education, substance abuse recovery professionals, community-based organizations that serve the mental health, homeless, and recovery communities. And currently there is a vacancy on that committee in the education area. And the committee coordinator is recommending Amanda Martin, who is a school counselor. The application is attached for your review. And the administration office makes no recommendation on advisory board appointments.
Thank you.
Move to appoint, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Neves, second by Supervisor Fagundes. And second by Supervisor Fagundes and Peterson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley?
Aye.
Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson?
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes.
Okay, 5 in favor. We've approved as presented. Good luck to Amanda Martin. And thank you for your service. Next item, please.
Yes, thank you. So this request is a request to adjust the board schedule upcoming in November. The California State Association of Counties annual meeting is being held this year, but it is moved up to November timeframe from Thursday, November 12th through Thursday, November 19th. So it has been rescheduled. It's being held virtually. There are members of the board signed up to attend the conference as well as staff. So I'm requesting that your board amend the Board of Supervisors meeting schedule to cancel the meeting on November 17th so the board can focus and staff can focus on the conference and the material. Also, I'm requesting to keep the originally meeting that was scheduled on December 1st, to keep that as a canceled meeting due to the Thanksgiving holiday.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Moved by Supervisor Fagundes, second by Supervisor Neves. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley?
Aye.
Supervisor Peterson?
Aye.
Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes.
Okay, 5 in favor. We have approved as presented. Next item, we'll take some discussion. So we'll start off with, I think, County Council or Rebecca.
I'll take that item, thank you. So this is an item regarding appointing a negotiator to represent the county in negotiations with the Santa Rosa Rancheria Tachioca tribe. We have been currently meeting with them, negotiating a new memorandum of understanding for county services. As part of the negotiation, there has been a proposal to build a new fire station on tribal land. And this request would be to designate the county administrative officer, myself, as the authorized negotiator for the agreement and allow me to confer with others regarding the negotiations. The property is located at the corner of 16th and Jersey Avenue, APN 028-130-028. And it is owned by the tribe.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would ask just for clarification, in my memory, didn't we almost a year ago take up a vote to declare Supervisor Joe Neves and myself as the lead negotiators on this issue relative to the MOU between the county and the tribe? I thought we took that up as a vote.
You were delegated authority to negotiate on behalf of the board as part of the negotiating team. This is specifically dedicated to the real estate negotiation associated with that larger intergovernmental agreement.
Does this, okay, so then you're saying real estate only, not the ability to negotiate in the way that we have been weekly?
Actually, that's a really good question, Supervisor Valley. The way that this has come about is that the real estate is an inherent part of the larger deal. What we get on the real estate side impacts what we get on the other parts of the agreement. So I think it would be fair for the board to assume that the whole package is part of negotiating what it is willing to pay and what it's willing to get as part of the real estate negotiation.
What about the finer points of the agreement to the terms of the costs on what the tribe negotiates between the county and the tribe on the costs of operations?
All of it. All of it. It's all part of the deal. Everyone has put that on the table.
Okay, so then I guess my question is, why exactly are we, well, through the chair, my question through the chair, why exactly are we needing to take this action today if we've come this far without this action?
Mr. Chair, if I could answer twofold. One is because now we're coming up on the end of the negotiation and the board needs to be engaged and informed about the terms that have been negotiated so far. And as a board, the Brown Act suggests that that conversation is best had in closed session. And in order to get into closed session, you have to identify the specific piece of real estate and you have to appoint a lead negotiator. With that said, I would just like to advise the board that of course you can appoint whoever you want to be the lead negotiator, but if it is a member of the board, that is problematic from a Brown Act standpoint. The reason being that every single one of you is supposed to keep an open mind and determine once you're presented with the agreement and the facts and as a deliberative body that you are prepared to base your decision on the record. Having an appointed official be appointed as lead negotiator would call into question whether that person comes with a decision already made when they bring it to the board for deliberation. It's just a potential ground for a challenge. There is nothing that prevents up to 2 members being on the negotiating team, but it's up to the board discretion to determine whether you appoint one of them as the lead negotiator.
Can I ask, Mr. Chairman, who's the lead negotiator officially for the tribe?
Yeah.
That's hard to say. The person who's been doing the most talking is obviously their attorney. The chair, Chair Cisco and Vice Chair Jeff have been in the meetings for over a year, and I think the attorney would likely defer to them on proposals that are batted around, but they haven't told us who they appointed as their lead negotiator.
I would assume it's Chairman Cisco, based on being a part of the conversations for the year, that same time frame, myself. And so that leads me to the next question, Mr. Chair. If the CAO is appointed as an official negotiator, does that give the CAO the ability to meet and negotiate without you and I? As it stands right now, it's you and I. Who are the other 2 quote negotiators on the committee? Does that give the CAO the ability to have conversations and negotiate without you and I?
I would assume it's time of the essence right now.
I would say it would be based on the motion because it will require a motion in order to appoint someone as lead negotiator. My reading of the agenda item was that there's actually a team of people that would be responsible for the negotiations. But again, the point of this is to get it into closed session, and whatever the board's flavor is for who should be the lead would be the subject of the motion.
In closed session, we have the
No,
ability to
the
change that?
motion needs to happen before closed session,
Yeah.
or you can't go into closed session to do real estate negotiations.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to be negative. I know this seems like every Tuesday there's fireworks, and I'm not trying to be the one to do that this Tuesday, but this is it's a very serious matter. It's a matter that impacts our abilities in the future on what monies are left, may or may not be there. And I can tell you that from being a part of the negotiations, that the ability to affect things that you and I could vote on in the next budget cycle are impacted by these negotiations. And I'm not comfortable with anybody being let me take that back. I'm not comfortable with the CAO being the lead negotiator and having the ability to have these conversations without at least two of us present. Even with two of us present, that those conversations are not going smoothly. And this right here is where I feel that this should be a closed session discussion, to have the ability to talk to the board without bringing things out in the public. I feel that it's a very sensitive matter as far as what the county is negotiating with the tribe. And even last week, it didn't work out. The process doesn't work out. I was on the meeting, so was Super Boone. We were having the discussions going back and forth relative to fire. It was at this point, the process is more between electeds to electeds. Super Boone, myself, with the chairman of the tribe, Mr. Cisco, and Vice Chairman Jeff. That's where they want it, and that's where we have had discussions with them. We had a meeting a week ago that I want to share with you in closed session, just the four of us, and it was elected to elected. And moving forward, because of some difficulties in the negotiations that I'm not going to bring up right now, that's the reason why they want it to be seen as elected to elected. And I think that declaring the CAO the lead negotiator sends the wrong message back to the tribe, and has the ability, in my opinion, to make more difficult these very sensitive negotiations. There's sensitive from the fact you have political, you have financial impacts, and cultural, right? The tribe is very culturally sensitive, and we have to respect that. This right here is not a good fit. I don't know how else we get around it. I wish we could declare the chairman of the board as our lead negotiator as well. I understand that council sees some challenges with that, but I don't, because I don't think Super Boone and I, as the two that are in the room right now, and I don't want to speak for you, sir, I'm not trying to disrespect you, it's my opinion. I don't think that him and I would let a conversation go so far on a deal that we don't feel is good for the whole board, that we would come back to you and say, here's what we negotiated over the last year and a half. But sitting here and knowing we don't like it, I think we come back with something that we're proud of for the whole board to hear about and learn about, and then cast your final votes on the deal. So I'm saying that to say, I don't see a challenge where, if the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to be equal to negotiate with the chairman who I believe is the lead on the tribal side. I think that's just respect. I think it's very respectful, and I think it's appropriate, and I just don't see the challenge in that. That's where I would feel more comfortable.
More comments, questions?
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Peterson? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. In taking into, understanding everything that Supervisor Valley has said, I think my concerns would be around the limitations and the laws of the state of California, the county's ordinances, and all of those things. And I think it's vital that we have someone. I mean, from the board member standpoint, we don't know what we don't know, and from the aspect of limitations on spending, on line items with respect to, I think it creates a void in the negotiation of not having that person. So you try to respect everything that Supervisor Valley has talked about, and somebody says, "Oh, that sounds reasonable," but from our ordinances and policies, it's not, and nobody in the room has that information. And so I think it's a disservice to this effort not having all the information in the room. And so I don't know how you devise that, but I think it doesn't give the power. It doesn't take power away from the board having us appoint a chief negotiator that could be in the room while everyone else is there. But I think it's important to have that knowledge in the room and doing a fair job at negotiations. And when I say fair, I mean fair and equitable, but also within the limitations of our policies.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know we met with the chair and vice chair on tribal negotiations, but I mean on the county standpoint, we're not doing chair and vice chair, we're just doing chair and Supervisor Valley. So I don't know if that's going to be a concern or offend you, Supervisor Peterson, if you're not involved in the negotiations. I know you and myself have had a lot of negotiations with a lot of realtors over our short life and have some experience. And I have faith in Rebecca for her knowledge for the past year and a half of negotiating with the tribe, that things that I don't know about that she's dealt with, and she knows where we started and where we're at today. But I think maybe we can do it with her and two representatives from the board so we don't lose any communication. But time is of the essence. We don't need to be in a position where someone has to pull the trigger on the negotiation in a room by themselves and not bring it back to the board and wait in a week or two and coming back. We're going to miss our timeline to get this thing done. So I think it's important to, she's putting her job on the line when she's out there negotiating for us on behalf. If she doesn't represent well, I think she'll lose quite a few nights of sleep making sure she does the right thing. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Okay, go ahead, Supervisor Peterson.
Yeah, no, I think it's important, and in no way does it usurp our voting powers, because she can't. I mean, in a negotiation standpoint, everyone understands that it has to go back to the body to be, approved or disproved. And, it's just negotiation, and I get the sensitivity and everything that Supervisor Valley has outlined, but I think it's important that, we have that knowledge in the room, and if it's a 2-member panel, if it's the chairman and the negotiator, that's up to the board to, decide that, but I think we should have that knowledge in the room.
Can I build on that? And I respect C. Peterson's comments. I wanted to clarify that I'm not saying that if the chairman of the Board of Supervisors was the lead negotiator, I'm not saying that he would go in the room himself. No matter who that is, I think that we still got to have a council. We still got to have the CAO. We have the sheriff. We have the fire chief who's been there. I'm not trying to exclude that. I'm not for Rebecca, the only one in the room. I'm not for the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, the only one in the room. I wanted to be very clear on that. You do got to have that that knowledge in the room. But again, from the chief of the tribe and the vice chairman, just as it is to Super Boone and I, they see this and they want this to be from here out is elected to elected. So the last week's call, we very much had that tone. There was man, I hate even talking about the call in public. Why do we have to do this without being in closed session? I don't think me sharing things publicly is respectful to the tribe. And I think it hampers our ability to negotiate. How could we get this in closed session?
You can appoint a
I've asked
negotiator.
last week.
You can appoint a negotiator and then you can have this conversation in closed session.
Mr. Chairman, the thing that's not being talked about though, my first question was why now? And I believe it's because I had a concern last week. Do you want to talk about the concern? I emailed you. You want to print out my email for the whole board to read, at least that they could read it?
That would become public record if you printed it out for the whole board.
Do you see a problem with that?
I don't. It's up to you. It's your email. It sounded like you want to share something confidentially with the board outside of an allowed closed session.
Because it impacts them. And I don't like being cornered to where the board can't have all the information they need to make a decision.
Well, Supervisor Valley, here's an option.
Okay.
One would be appoint a lead negotiator, go into closed session. You can always come back and reappoint another lead negotiator. You just can't go into closed session without having taken that step.
Okay, to get
moves it on.
No, I know. And I'm not, and again, Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to be negative, but I want to be fair to the folks, Sue Peterson, Sue Fagundes, and Sue Neves, who this impacts them. It impacts you moving forward. And Mr. Chairman, if we're going to have a placeholder, then I would move that at this point, since it could be changed, just for the placeholder, I would move that Chairman Verboen would be our placeholder lead negotiator, and then that opens the door to go in closed session, have a conversation.
Right here.
Just a placeholder, Mr. Chair. You might be the lead negotiator for an hour.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean,
we have a motion by Supervisor Valley for me to be the lead negotiator on the tribal issues.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Second by Supervisor Neves. I'll have to pay you back someday. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley?
aye.
Supervisor Verboen?
Yeah.
Supervisor Peterson?
No.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes.
Okay, 4 in favor, 1 no, and we'll move on. So right now, we're going to go to administrative and Rebecca Campbell, and we have the health department.
Okay, next item. This is a weekly update revolved around the pandemic for the novel coronavirus 2019. I'll first start going through any state actions, any federal actions, any local actions, and then I'll turn it over for Director Edward Hill, who will give an operations and health update. So on the state side, I wanted to let your board know that the governor announced this week that the states of Washington, Oregon, and Nevada have joined California COVID-19 Scientific Safety Review Work Group, which will independently review the safety and any COVID vaccine approved by the FDA for distribution. The governors of Washington, Oregon, and Nevada will identify public health experts to join California's work group, and members of the California work group. The health experts will review any vaccine that receives federal approval and verify its safety before California, Washington, Oregon, or Nevada will make the vaccine available to the public. The governor also announced a round of awards for Project Home Key. So that's a total of 17 new projects totaling 982 units, making the total $835.6 million towards Project Roomkey. The governor also signed an executive order, N8320, directing Caltrans to create a process for issuing temporary encroachment permits, enabling commercial activities in the state highway right-of-way, allowing businesses located along state highways to expand their outdoor dining options onto sidewalks and parking areas where safety permits. The order also allows people 70 years of age or older to renew their driver's licenses by mail and extends provisions related to the deadlines for payment of real estate license application and renewal fees and continuing education requirements for those licenses. On the federal side, the U.S. Treasury released its desk review procedures for prime recipients of CARES Act coronavirus relief funds. The desk review may result in a site visit and also more in-depth review and audit. On the county front, the County Emergency Operations Center continues to meet weekly. Also, my office, I submitted the monthly attestation for the Department of Finance. And we're continuing to take precautions. The election is in play, so you'll see some changes there as well, and continuing to take precautions revolving around COVID-19. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Public Health, Edward Hill.
Morning, Ed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'd like to start my report as I always do with not losing sight of the basic practices that we can do to protect ourselves and our loved ones from the spread of communicable disease such as COVID. Those are wash our hands frequently for 20 seconds or more. Don't touch your face with unwashed hands. Stay home if you are sick. Stay hydrated and cover your face to help protect yourself and loved ones. Our current numbers for the county, we've collected currently 74,544 samples or tests. We have 410 results pending. We're currently monitoring 1,296 individuals. Current total cases since the outbreak began in the community is 4,726. Unfortunately, 75 deaths. Our total recovered so far is 4,080. Active cases are currently at 593. Our skilled nursing facilities have remained the same and haven't changed, with a total of 173 total cases since the outbreak began. There are currently 0 active and 173 recovered, and unfortunately, again, 24 deaths. Our prison outbreaks continue. The current total cases is 4,279. That's 443 at Corcoran, 3,102 at Avenal State Prison, and 734 at SATF. They've collected 38,902 samples with 258 results pending. They currently have 703 active cases. They've recovered 3,113. They're now at 9 deaths. That's an increase, unfortunately. They currently have 3 hospitalized, 2 in Bakersfield, 1 in Hanford. As mentioned last week, SATF reported a large number of new cases, greater than 200 last week, and they've also reported an additional 108 so far this week. As mentioned, we've reached out to the Unified Support Team to get them involved. Last week, we spoke with the Hospital-Acquired Infection team at California Department of Public Health and the healthcare side of CDCR, and we're all working together to hopefully slow the spread of this disease. We will have weekly calls with them moving forward. Again, our concerns remain the possible healthcare surge this could cause the staph infections being carried back to the community. We continue to watch hospital data closely. We're seeing a slight increase in hospitalizations and ICU patients locally, regionally, and statewide, more specifically ICU admissions. As of yesterday, the local hospital had 11 COVID patients, with 3 in the intensive care unit. The Porterville Development Center remains at a closed status, but it is a warm status, which means it can be stood back up hopefully within 72 hours if we do have a healthcare surge. We are still currently maintaining a 60-day supply of PPE for all of our healthcare facilities. Our mobile testing program site schedule for this week is yesterday it was at the Kings County Complex. Today it's at Avenal High School. Tomorrow it'll be at Armona Elementary. Thursday at Lemoore High School. Friday is off. Saturday it'll be at Teche Palace, and Sunday it'll be at Quinania Church. Also last week I had mentioned that we were participating in a pilot with the state, and I'm happy to say that we were able to, and the schools were able to collect 695 samples. and have them shipped and processed at the new state lab in Valencia. The turnaround time for the samples have been about 24 to 40 hours. We did encounter some hurdles, but that was to be expected since this was a pilot program and the purpose of the program was to identify these barriers. We also only had 24 hours to bring everything together, as mentioned before, and thankfully public health staff, local schools, and Adventist Health pulled together on an extremely short notice and made it happen. And as a reminder of what this pilot included, the state provided all of the testing kits, the software to register the patients in the lab that process the samples. The counties had to provide the staff to register the patients, collect the samples, and the logistics of getting the samples to Valencia each day and notify the patients of their results. The plan for the resources were that the kits were shipped to public health and then we distributed them to the schools. The schools with staffing assistance from Adventist Health collected the samples and public health picked them up and transported them to Valencia each day. We also teamed up with Tulare, as I'd mentioned in the past, so that all of our samples were transported together. This was a huge lift again by all involved, and I couldn't be prouder of the staff here at Public Health, the schools, and the hospital for making this happen. Almost every school participated, and the state, the California Department of Public Health, Color, which is a software vendor, and the Unified Support Team for the state all praised us and Tulare for all of our efforts to make this successful. Also, as mentioned last week, the state rolled out their new testing models available to the counties, along with their possible associated costs. Again, in unusual fashion, we didn't get much notice and had to turn around in 2 days, a day and a half. As mentioned before, we chose the local health jurisdiction option, which has the least amount of cost and risk associated with it. This provides us with a great deal of flexibility that we don't have now with current testing models. Much like the pilot, the states can provide all the testing kits, the software and training for registration and tracking, as well as the lab capacity and new lab reporting reporting to CalReady, which is the state's database. The state continues to promise turnaround times of 24 to 48 hours. The county will need to provide the staff to register the patients, collect samples, and the logistics of getting the samples to Valencia each day and notify the patients of the results. The current plan is pretty much the same as the pilot. The resources will be shipped to public health and we will distribute them to local schools, the jail, public health clinics if necessary. We'll also be able to use these resources with our mobile unit. This was the most logical option given the state did indicate that there would be a share of cost to the counties, but couldn't really provide any details on what that cost would be. All of the other options, as mentioned before, had very large price tags, anywhere from $158,000 to $573,000 a month, and it was undetermined what portion of those costs would fall to the counties. In a follow-up, we had our meeting with the state testing task force yesterday morning to go over our choice as well as provide them with any additional questions that we may have. We also learned during this call that we will not be locked into or limited to the current choice, and as things progress, we can request other testing models. We did talk about a likely partnership with our surrounding counties to possibly explore and share a model of the traveling team model. This model would send teams that would support the OptumServe fixed sites, but they would be ancillary staff that could create teams and go out to businesses or other sectors on an as-needed basis. So we look forward to pursuing that with Tulare and the other counties. Our program that is designed to support the essential workforce in their isolation and quarantine needs is currently serving 20 households with a total of 65 households served. We continue to promote this, and as mentioned before, we have expanded this program to include all of the census tracts necessary for the health equity metrics. We've been holding our regularly scheduled follow-ups and ad hoc calls with the State Unified Support Team and continue to work through any pending issues. Our planning efforts for the possible release of the COVID-19 vaccine continues with CDPH and our local health jurisdiction calls. A couple of weeks ago, we introduced our strategy to address the state's targeted investment plan. One of our initial actions was to conduct interviews with past and our current positive COVID patients to identify any barriers in existing testing, isolation, quarantine, case investigation, and contact tracing. And we've started those interviews, and we'll hope to have them completed by the end of this week and be able to take what we've learned and implement and adjust our processes accordingly. As mentioned before, the state did approve our targeted investment plan, and they did indicate that they would request some modifications, but they've not sent us what those requested modifications will be. When we learn, we will update your board. Our current number for the state's metric this week, our new cases per 100,000 is at 6, and we are seeing an increase in numbers from last week and this week. Our overall testing positivity is at 2.2%. Our tested positivity in the lowest quartile of the Healthy Places Index, or the health equity metrics, is back down at 1.7 currently. This means our new cases per 100,000 remains in the red tier, and our testing positivity for the lowest quartile of the Healthy Places Index and the overall testing positivity meets orange criteria or tier 3 criteria. Our test per 100,000 is currently 289 a day. That's our average. But I do need to mention that we anticipate that we may exceed the new cases per 100,000 metrics of 7 by next week, which may put us in jeopardy of having to move back to the purple tier if our numbers remain for 2 consecutive weeks. If that occurs, the state will review the most recent 10 days of data, and if CDPH determines that there are objective signs of improvement, the county will be able to remain in the red tier. But if they don't see objective signs that the data is improving, we may have to move back to a more restrictive tier. Again, to prevent this, our best option still remains to test frequently and countywide. If we can maintain our testing positivity values in the orange tier level, we have a good chance of remaining in the red tier should this occur. Our concern over this is testing fatigue. Thankfully, the state's new testing process is a self-swab, much similar to the one that we use with the mobile unit. However, it's not as invasive. You don't have to get the swab all the way to your nasopharynx. Instead, it can just be collected along the most lower part of the nose or the nares, which is much more comfortable, if you will, testing process. So I want to be clear and again remind everybody that, we have warned that even though our numbers were looking good, the more we open, the greater the chance for the spread of the virus, so that these changes were kind of expected. And we've seen these in other counties as well. We're communicating with other counties to find out what their drivers were so that we can learn from them. Right now, it's just been community spread, and our EPI team is working to identify if there's any hot spots or areas of concern. I need to again remind everybody that this is COVID and everything continues to change hourly. In this update by the state Sunday night, CDPH reported an increase in statewide positivity of 9.1%, and as I mentioned before, increase in hospital admissions across the state and regionally and locally. Given this, again, I want to urge everybody not to get in a rush to get out, to test frequently, and to remain diligent implementing the measures to keep us all safe. We've already seen an increase in gatherings and events associated with Halloween, and we're hearing of a number of events planned for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So again, we're urging people not to get in a rush to get out, as this may cause us to drive up our numbers. We are working with community-based organizations as well as other organizations to get this word out, to make sure that the message is not just coming from public health in the county, that we do need to maintain the course and stay on track so that we don't have to slip back to the purple tier. I'm going to conclude my report there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions or comments for Ed? Ed, on yesterday, the court ruling on Sutter County against Newsom, that he overruled his power, would that affect anything in the future, or just everything stays the same?
We still have to see what that will affect. I'm assuming that there will be additional actions taken by the Newsom administration, so we're kind of keeping our fingers on the pulse of that right now.
Yep, thank you. Any questions or comments? Nothing? Rebecca, you got something to add?
That's all we have. Thank you. We're looking into the Newsom issue, and we'll bring that back with information next week.
Thank you. I think it's important that we all get tested and just make it part of your weekly plan, and try to get your friends to get tested as well, so we can, at least you're healthy yourself, and there's no question. Right now, we're going to go to board member announcements and reports. Supervisor Valley?
I'm good right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Peterson?
I'm good, sir.
Supervisor Fagundes?
I'm good also.
Supervisor Neves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, you and I had the ability to sit in on the CART meeting. We selected December 9th as a special meeting. We're going to combine November 25th and the December 23rd regular scheduled meetings to that December 9th meeting. We also approved the month of December being free transit period for riders in Kings County. We also talked about a van pool program and laying the groundwork for that. Also, we discussed a little bit about the new building, transit center design, and we also approved the COS transit agreement for enrolled students. I was kind of surprised with the online system, but students are still moving around, and so they felt that it was important. Students do pay that through part of their tuition fees, and so that money is continued to be collected, and so it kind of makes sense to go ahead and have that agreement in place, and those students being able to move around. We also passed the requirement that all passengers wear face coverings. As you're aware, aircraft and as well as rail transportation has had some standards, and so we have also joined that, and so all face coverings unless you have a medical clearance from a medical professional. We then moved into the Association of Governments meeting where we requested an audit extension. This is pretty much commonplace because financials aren't done or completed on time, and so we have to be able to take the financial reports from all the respective cities and combine them and make an annual audit for the Association of Governments, and that will take place again as kind of normal. The overall work program for Caltrans was amended, which again is pretty commonplace, and we'll continue to work on that. They also selected December 9th as a replacement for the November, December, and we had a good discussion about Calvans with additional information presented. We'll continue to watch that as well. Attended the virtual Kings County Economic Development Annual Meeting. That was a new twist to that meeting. Certainly want to congratulate Amy Ward and the Kings County Chamber, as well as Tackett Marketing and Nichols Farms for receiving various awards at that event. I want to thank staff, Sarah, Melanie, everyone that donated money for the Kings County Battle of the Badges blood drive. All of the donors and supporters, whether you got candy or a gift card or anything that, or even if you went over there and tried to donate, there were some deferrals as normal. Blood supplies nationwide continue to be at an all-time critical low. And so if you can donate blood, we certainly appreciate the effort. Domestic art show, domestic violence. Again, because of COVID restrictions, some of those normal events were not able to take place. So staff was very creative and created an outdoor presentation of paintings by the victims. And it was very, very good, a very nice event, and some very good art. And they did it out at the horse place where you ride horses.
Corral. Okay, Corral.
Yeah, in Lemoore. So it was a nice event for the victims to be able to get out and get in a different environment. And I'm drawing a blank on the.
I know where you're going, but I don't know what it's called.
Yeah. Anyway, a place in Lemoore where they have the horse uses riding horses as a treatment therapy. Yeah, equine therapy. And so it worked out very, very well and turned out very nice for the victims. And they had some very good painting as well. Traveled to Fresno, Poverello House, tour the pallet structures. They ended up putting those structures on an existing parking lot, so they had some adjustments and they had some unique ways to get around some issues. But it was nice to be able to go up to Fresno and see those structures face to face. We took some pictures, we took some measurements, we looked around, and it was a nice outing. That facility in that part of Fresno. First time I've been there since they've really cleaned a lot of it up because of high-speed rail, and so that many of the landmarks in that part of the world have changed, and so it's good to see the Poverello House, the rescue mission, all of those that were kind of in that area anyway is still there and functioning, and had an opportunity to look at that. And then on Saturday was able to be the judge for the Lions and Leo Club. Again, that was one of these virtual things that we did on Zoom, and I was pleasantly surprised as technology will sometimes challenge many people. There was 26 people involved. A nice little event. Played a few games. Judged some costumes and some stories, and had a pretty nice Halloween. And then with that, I need to get with you, Mr. Chair, about some high-speed rail in this period of time. And I don't know if it's them or the contractor, but don't seem to be paying their bills on time again. And some local vendors are having a difficult time having to carry that multi-billion-dollar.
We can make some phone calls
and see if we can't get some checks in the mail, because it's a real disadvantage when local businesses have to carry that project, and especially in this day and time when dollars are very, very important. So I'll get with you after the meeting and we'll work on that contact list.
Glad to help.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll move on now to board correspondence. Rebecca.
Also, regarding construction inspection of subdivision. Also, fire.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead now and go to closed session. Before I start closed session, do you think there'll be any reporting out?
There may be, Mr. Chair, but what I would prefer to do is report out at the beginning of the next meeting if the board takes any reportable action.
Okay, thank you. Closed session. Deciding to initiate litigation, one case, Government Code Section 54956.9. Document of threat of litigation is available from clerk of the board. Personal matter, Government Code Section 54957, public employment, title, Public Works Director. Conference with labor negotiator, meet and confer, Government Code Section 54957.6. Negotiator Rebecca Campbell, Henny Ring, Shay Johnson of Liberty, Cassidy Whitmore. Blue collar is CIU. Detentions Deputy Association, Deputy Sheriff's Association, Firefighters Association, General Closia, Probation Officers Association, Prosecutors Association, Supervisors Closia. Next item will be conference with real property negotiator, Government Code Section 54956.8, property southeast corner of 16th Avenue and Jersey Avenue, APN 028-130-130-028. Negotiating parties to be determined. Right now, I'm the negotiator. So, and that's it. And we'll, this meeting will adjourn until next Tuesday at 9 a.m. And there will be possibly be reporting out before that meeting. Thank you. Okay.
Doug, can you hear me?
I can't see you, but I can hear you. Yes, sir. I hear you.
Yeah, I got cut off and it keeps, this system keeps cutting me off. Is she going to send me a new connection for the meeting? Or
No,
we staying here?
I don't believe so. I think you're going to stay on, right?
We have two different options. Supervisor Peterson, we can have you call in to one person's phone and put you on speaker, or I can create a new WebEx, or